Hello and welcome to the Overton Audios podcast. My name's Connor Chadwick.
And I'm Eamon Longman.
And in today's podcast, I will be speaking with Aidan O'Connor on Doctor Who Divergence and SUPERS Volume 2.
And then Connor also talks to Abi Louise about some Big Finish stuff, I think.
Yes.
I don't talk to anyone.
Cool. Well, once again, thank you to our Patreons. Anya Coyle, Peter Scott, TT Productions 23, Chelsea Lagan, Delta Effects, and Joe Eddings. How have you been, though, Eamon? Let's talk now.
I'm good. I've been good. I'm house sitting for my mother. So I'm in a different environment. It's good. I don't have to talk to fucking anyone at home. It's great. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. I just get alone Eamon time, and then I end up sitting on Zooms with James Sutton all day. But, you know, that's my choice. I could leave the Zooms. I can't leave it when people just walk into my office and just start talking to me. I can't just, like, quit that one. So it's nice. Yes. And she has a spa. I like the spa.
Oh, okay. So do you go and sit there and enjoy the spa?
I do. I do it normally at about 1 a.m. And it scares the shit out of me, but I do it. It's pitch, but she lives in a lifestyle block. So it's kind of pitch black at night out there. And I sit there with all the lights on around me and just kind of sit. I don't turn the bubbles on because it's too noisy. And I've got to hear my surroundings. Because I've got to make sure I'm not murdered, which is my biggest fear. So, yeah.
Your biggest fear?
You just kind of sit there. I'm just going to sit there for a bit and just kind of glance around the area. And then I hear a rustle and I'm just like, fucking, what's that?
And then you decide,
and then like the wind blows, so I'm like, fuck off. Yeah, and then I'm in there for normally about 20 to 30 minutes before I go, cool, that was enough. And then I get out and I go back inside. I'm like, cool, I've survived murder tonight. I'm good.
Have you ever had any moments where like a twig snaps behind you?
No, because that would be fucking terrifying because the right behind me is the door that leads into the house. So if a twig snapped inside the house, I know I'm fucked. It's just some guy sitting in the house who just snaps a twig. That'd be Sutton. That'd be Sutton coming to kill me.
Sutton strategically leaving a series of twigs to be stood on, so that as he makes his escape, you just hear them, and you're like, ah!
No, Sutton, no.
Also this month,
how have you been?
Oh, okay. I've been fine.
Oh yes. What else have I been up to this month?
Oh, okay. You've actually
what? No, you started talking about me.
I did. I thought we were talking about me now, though.
No, back to me.
Back to me, please.
Back to me. What were we talking about?
You've been having series 1 of the Kiwi Doctor Adventures start, haven't you?
I have. So far, we've released 1 episode. Yes, we've got 2 more episodes as part of Volume 1, and then we go on a break for like a month, so I can edit the next 3 episodes, which are not edited in the slightest. Yeah.
Oh, good.
And so I need to get through that. And then I've got a couple of special things to release. And then we've got The Last Universe. And Eamon's a busy boy now.
Busy.
And I need to stop procrastinating.
Yep, I'm in the same boat as you. The podcast is the only
thing I get home and I'm like,
time.
I should edit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get home and I'm like, maybe I should edit. And then I sit there and I go,
no,
I'm going to binge a TV show.
For me,
so I binge TV shows instead. I've
been having issues as well because I've got so much to do, but yeah, I'm not doing it. Then again, as of recording this, next week will be my busiest week I've had in a very long time because I'll be basically living in Coventry for a week for this site. Yeah. I'm just so tired of this.
A busy boy.
I don't often talk about my work, like my job outside of Overton Audios that much, but I will say right now I'm not liking it. As you've seen, and other people around us have seen, that I'm not particularly enjoying myself. I've essentially been up since 5 a.m. We're recording this well, in my time zone at least, it's 11 at night. I've been up since 5 in the morning. Before that, I had 4 hours sleep, and I had the exact same thing of being awake from 5 in the morning till 1 a.m. So I'm kind of a husk at the moment. This particular site, no one's actually very considerate there, and they kind of just use us, but they are paying us to use us badly, so fine. But
That's all right then.
But no, here I am with my hot chocolate.
You
recording
heard
a
it here,
podcast with
folks.
Eamon.
You heard it here, folks. If you pay Cheddars, you can treat him awfully.
Why do you make it like this? Why do you do this?
So you just said.
Not me
They're treating me
personally.
awfully, but they're giving us money, so it's okay.
Well, yeah, we get paid to go and do a job. We go and do the job. Doesn't matter how they talk to us. It does, because I don't like them, but nonetheless, we're here. But yes.
Here.
Anyway, moving on to more positive things. Shall we talk about the new Divergence story that Aidan wrote?
No.
Oh.
My lady, the Dalek craft shields are weakening, but they're still firing. What should we do?
Keep firing at the thrusters. They'll surrender once they know their ability to escape is lost.
As you wish, Commander.
Good. Of course. Who else?
Well then, I see never a dull moment with you, is it, Romana?
Well, when you're granted the rank of Commander by the High Council, a dull moment is very hard to find these days. Especially in this case, Doctor.
Oh, so that's why you called me out here then, to deal with this.
You're one of the only people who truly knows Davros.
Probably better than most.
Exactly. Maybe you could talk him down to surrender to us. We could learn a lot from him and find more ways of stopping the Daleks.
Romana, it's not exactly easy to talk down a psychopath.
You've done it before?
Has it ever worked?
Sometimes.
And welcome back to the podcast. And I'm joined by Aidan O'Connor. Hello, Aidan. How are you?
Hello, Connor. How are you? What's new?
Yeah, I've been good. Thanks. Yeah, indeed. Have you been all right?
I'm good. Just walking away on some college stuff. You are, as you say in the UK, uni. So just been tipping away.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
I'm okay.
I think this is your first time on the podcast as a guest, because you have appeared on the podcast before, but you appeared, I want to say it was it wasn't last September. I think you've appeared in the one we called Utter Chaos as a co-host. There was one that we did where there was about 5 hosts at once, and Utter Chaos.
That was funny. I can recall that one because what is it? I remember literally we were all brought on because I think Dan was busy.
He was out getting donuts that day.
Yeah, and I remember, what was it? Oh, that was funny because Dan came on near the end, and he was like, "What's going on, guys?" And we're all just there like, "Well, look who it is." It's just,
well, he didn't know we were recording the podcast either. He didn't know we were recording the podcast, so he was just like, "Hello, guys, how have you been?" And we go, "Hello, Daniel, welcome to the podcast." And he's like, "Oh." he just had no clue. But then apart from being a co-host once, you were also in September 2021, and that was because we were talking about Crimson Hunter Volume 3, I want to say. Oh, no, maybe Volume 2 actually. And at that point, Dimension of the Daleks had just finished filming in August, so you joined, and we briefly spoke about that. And because obviously Luke Lane was on the podcast as well because of Volume 2, and he was voicing the Daleks for Dimension of the Daleks, it just kind of came along that in the end, we just kind of swapped Chelsea out for you for a little bit to talk about Dimension of the Daleks for a little bit. But other than that, no, this is your first time as a full one-on-one guest, isn't it?
It's a bit new. I've never, I know before I've been kind of on in kind of as just suddenly a cameo, and then as one of the many people on the Chaos one. But it's nice, because I was kind of thinking, I was like, I might get brought on for Dimension or something, just as an extra person or whatever. But I was like, and then I forgot, and then I forgot about the other characters and I've done or any kind of writing things I've wrote, and I'm like, oh yeah, I did that stuff too. What am I? So it's it's
Yeah.
nice. It's different. I kind of get why everybody's like really happy when they go on the podcast because like, hey, I've done it.
Yeah. Yeah, but we're here to talk to you about two things today. Usually we have two subjects or one main subject, but if it's two, it's split across two different people. But you are involved with two projects this month, and that is Doctor Who Divergence and Supers Volume 2. Now, Doctor Who Divergence has already come out on the 1st of May. I've pre-warned quite a few of the fans in advance that this one would be a bad one, but not a bad one because it's a bad story, but because of its what we will say is its gore level.
Yeah, I mean,
it became the story that nearly all of our friends boycotted Overton Audios over.
it's I won't lie, right? I just so I know, the episode has come out at this point, right? So
Of course it
I
has,
can kinda,
yeah. That's coming
yeah.
out on the first of
So
every month. We don't release the podcast until a couple of days in anyway.
oh yeah. So I mean, I will say this, guys. When I when I wrote this, I don't know if I sent it to George, but I sent it to Connor. I don't think because Connor, I don't know if you looked at it for a while, but I kept telling you I'm so sorry. I kind of told you I'm so sorry because
I did
I
have a
don't really,
review of it, but I don't think I quite understood the level it went to until I was editing it, and I was like, "Oh wait, hang on, his eye falls out."
yeah.
Yeah,
It was,
I think
yeah,
I'd read it because I remember you had this initial idea because and obviously this is something we're developing anyway, and we're fine to talk about this because the character has appeared in Crimson Hunter Volume 3, which is you wanted to do something a bit similar to Dalek Storm.
yeah. So the episode kind of came from different things because you mentioned to me stuff about like because I remember what was it? One thing I was seeing the if anyone remembers the kind of war that was the one with remember the contagion from series 3 of Cravat stuff,
Yes.
like kind of, yeah. I'd kind of been thinking about that, and then I think I don't know, I was trying to think about a sort of story where something would happen to the Doctor and that, and essentially this is it kind of I don't know whether it was a short straw where we drew what Doctor we were going to get from that story, but
Yeah.
I ended up with Blonde. Kind of ironic that I end up writing a story. I I wrote two stories bringing where he was back, and then all of a sudden, then there's I write a story where I brutally mutilate him. So it sort of came from a situation of, I was like, okay, I want to explore this, and this could be interesting, and all this kind of experimentation and whatnot. And then, I realized, oh no, I'm going on the gore route. And then by the end of it, once I'd written everything, I felt like, what have I done? There was, see, I took inspiration from a couple of things because there's like I've seen a couple of gory films in my time and a few scenes that are kind of very disheartening for people, like are very, I guess, tough for people to sit through. But I think what kind of I was thinking about was like the fact of, obviously I think the character James in series 3 was part Time Lord, but
Yeah, he
obviously got
was
changed
the
into a
character
dark.
of James. Yeah, he was a hybrid. So he used to be human, but then he was given a symbiotic nuclei, which meant that for his first regeneration, he was half Time Lord, half human. But then when he did regenerate into his second form, which appears in the Dalek Federation, the symbiotic nuclei just overrode the human element and made him a full Time Lord, but everyone still calls him a hybrid because he wasn't born Time Lord. So you are correct. Yes, it was a Time Lord still, nonetheless.
Yeah. So I mean, so when I was coming up with that kind of like situation, I was like, okay, the Doctor's a Time Lord. What is the, but also, I feel like the Doctor in some way, like his sort of rebellious personality kind of sticks true. Like like no matter what, he will try and fight against something. But then I was like, wait a minute, I'm making the blonde doctor the one who's going through this? How am I going to play this off? So it kind of had
I think you did it very well. I think you did it very well because we know that the story of the blonde doctor is that and I think it's a very good story. He's basically mentally unwell. He's got depression, and
yeah,
I think that's a really good thing to explore with the character of the Doctor, who's this hero but has to deal with so much. But what I find ironic is that every time there's a multiversal blonde Doctor, he's always the happiest version, and then something awful happens to him. I'll just add that as a thing.
It's beautiful irony, isn't it?
But I also think that's really interesting about the character, which is that if it wasn't for the blonde Doctor being depressed, he'd actually be quite cocky and make a lot of mistakes. So I find that quite interesting about the character because he's not like the idea is that if he didn't get depression, he would have become cocky. I like that kind of idea that you can explore with the character. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, because like it allows him to be, I guess, in a way humbled, because then he's not
100%.
He's not stuck to a particular thing. He's just like, I have to. I guess it holds him down and it kind of keeps him grounded, and that's why, like, I love the bit where, like, in the Crimson Hunter episode 3, where he's talking to Julia and he's immediately like kind of just like, I gotta get out of here. This is wrong. This is whatever. Like, he's not living in the moment. He's living in the sort of, he's very away from everyone. I don't know. I find it interesting.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I feel like his anxiousness and depression has actually kept him more self-aware, and as a result, it's kept him out of trouble because he's not been so cocky. Like, I remember, like, I mean, you've listened to the episode. I think I sent it to you a little while ago, but at the beginning of the story, when the blonde Doctor is talking to Romana, they're in the middle of a war, but he's just chuckling away. He's going, "Oh yes, Romana, I'll be back soon," and he's like, "Well, don't get into trouble." And then Blonde's just like, "Oh, when don't I?" And he goes off. Whereas I can imagine Blonde, as we know him, being a lot more cautious, a bit more forthright about things. Whereas here, he's just joking around. And he just literally lands right next to Davros and the weapon and just goes right up to him and goes, interesting. Like, he puts himself in danger because he feels like he can't be touched. And I find that really interesting, the idea that, because with Blonde's depression, it's caused by a sense of cockiness, I think, that he thinks he can't be damaged, and then something damages him and it really knocks him back. But imagine if he didn't have that event. I like to think that, like, something with Divergence here may have happened, or something worse, because I think it's all about perspective, especially when it comes to multiverse stuff like this. Like, imagine if, like, you'd said something different to like, imagine if you'd had an argument with someone and you said what you really wanted to say. Like, it could have really, like, for example, something like that, something as small as that, could completely make people see you a completely different way and change your whole journey in life. I know maybe that sounds a bit fanciful, but still.
I mean, with Blonde, I kind of look at it as this version of him is more of a risk taker. Like, he's someone who just, he throws himself into the fire because he just, I don't know if it plays into a bit of the character, but it's kind of like a nonchalant feeling about life, just kind of like going into the fire and just being like, I should be all right, and normally things work out for me. I think it's a different side of the Blonde that we know, who's, again, the more cautious out of the two. But yeah, I mean, sadly, it goes bad for him, unfortunately, in this story. I mean,
but I will also commend this, by the way, Benji as Davros.
Oh, mate, when you showed me the voice recordings, I was honestly, like, just excited. Like, I remember listening to them for the first time, just being like, oh my god, Benji, the voice. It's exactly how I remember him doing it. But I'm like, he's actually made it really, like, eerie. Just really feels like, there's he's, Davros is just toying with the Doctor in this moment.
That's the thing as well, is that something that I feel like I'm not right. I don't want to. I'm not gonna try and say something controversial here, but I think sometimes, in some cases, and I'm not going to turn around and say that I'm the encyclopedia or expert on the characters here, because I'm not. There are some cases, even in the show, where fan content or even the show itself will sometimes forget that these characters aren't just cut out villains. Like the Rani, a lot of people do sometimes forget that she's not a female master. So when everyone, because I remember when Missy got introduced, everyone went, "But we've had that with the Rani." No, we haven't. The Rani is a scientist who isn't evil. She just doesn't have morals. Like if she wants to find out something, she'll do it to advance technology, to advance her understanding and develop. But she's not got a moral compass about things. So she'll happily use an entire species and almost threaten to kill them in order to meet her ends. That doesn't make her the master. That makes her the Rani. That's who she is, and that's how she differs. Same thing with Davros. Davros is essentially anytime I try and write something with Davros, you have to have an intellectual conversation with the Doctor, because they're both scientists on one end of the argument.
I mean, like that's, I mean, clear, like how to put this. Whenever I find, you know, what I found weird. I really enjoy writing Dalek stuff, and I find out like I think I found a good niche with it. Like I can write really comedic stuff, but I can also write really eerie and dark things. But when it comes to like Davros, for example, I know people will just go straight to the the obvious thing of, oh, they're based on these people, based on the certain specific type of people. But I'm like, yes, but at the end of the day, Davros is also a scientist. He's someone who has been experimenting in laboratory.
So even the thing is, what's different about this story is they still have a bit of a scientific conversation at the beginning. Like the Doctor's horrified by what Davros has created, and obviously, I'll quickly say this because I don't think we mentioned it earlier, but for context about the contagion in the Federation War volume, or the Dalek Federation volume that we made with Doctor Resurrection and Cravat, there was the final weapon that Davros created was a weapon that can turn any living thing into a Dalek mutant, but vice versa, if it hits a Dalek mutant, it can convert them back partially. In this sense, what you've done is what if the Doctor was hit by it? Rather than it being Cravat, though, you've done it as Blonde. That's essentially the what if here. But nonetheless, we continue on. With Davros at the very beginning, though, he has that scientific discussion with the Doctor, whilst the Doctor is horrified by what he's done and what he's created and the immorality of it all. He is still fascinated by the fact that this exists and how it could exist. And that's kind of what I love about their conversations, is that as scientists, they're interested in the creations that they make, but horrified by each other at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, because for that, like, I remember, I was just, even though The Witch is Familiar and The Magician's Apprentice are sort of like, I look back on them with like kind of like, okay, but then also, I do like how Davros is sort of like interested when he mentions that the Time Lords are back, because he's like,
I mean,
a whole race.
That's another thing, is that I know that in that story, Davros was essentially basically pulling a ruse over the Doctor a lot, but that line when he talks about, like, he is actually, I don't know if it's part of the trick or not. Part of me feels that at some deeper level, Davros would kind of be happy for the Doctor that he saved his own people. Because Davros has lost so much in the pursuit of helping his people, that I feel like there's some sense of empathy there. And the same way that the Doctor has empathy for Davros may not have a lot of empathy for the Doctor. The Doctor's definitely more empathetic. I feel like Davros doing so much, dedicating his entire life. Look at, like, he's so damaged. He's now basically half robot because of how much he's trying to save the Khalid race. And the Doctor was able to save his own race from extinction. I do think Davros respects that.
Yeah, I mean, like Davros, I think as well, Davros sees the impossible. Like he's interested by the impossibility of how the Doctor did it, because it's like
Mm.
you managed to save an entire race that has been lost for eons, and everyone believes to be dead, and also that how do I say this? They've been lost in the universe somewhere, and somehow the Doctor has managed to do it, and it's just I don't know. It's one of those interesting things. I mean, it's I wouldn't say it's on the same level, but it's similar to how like I love when the Doctor poses Davros a question, like when he gives him like even back to the beginning where he goes, if you create actually this time I never thought about this before, but this ties back into about a virus. So
that's
where
that's what it's based on. When the Fourth Doctor asks Davros, if you created a virus that would kill any living thing upon contact, would you allow its use? Davros says yes, and that's what kind of was the inspiration for the contagion that turns everything into a Dalek, because I thought this amount of time in, Davros wouldn't destroy life, but he'd make it what he saw. So that's what the idea was.
And I mean,
it does link in very much.
and it works. I mean, it works so very well in that story, and then in this story, it's sort of like we're getting to see what happens when somebody tries to fight it, or when I guess you can see you're really seeing how a Time Lord really would have to rebel against this to try and stop it from overtaking them.
Yeah,
I mean, I won't lie.
George was fantastic as well.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who listened to it, George I remember George telling me at one point he screamed so badly that his neighbors had to ask him if he was okay. And I was like, that's commitment. That's a serious commitment to the role. Because I mean, I put the blonde Doctor through hell, man. I honestly, I still look back at it and I go, I just, because I was thinking in my head, okay, he has to become a Dalek mutant. What does a Dalek mutant have that a human doesn't? And then I was like, well, certain limbs, and
well, that's
only has one eye.
I have a visual reference as to I know in my head. I don't know if this will be the same for you. And my God, if we're going to talk about this, and a gore warning for everyone now, what do you imagine it looked like? I know his arm fell off. I know his arm fell off and an eye came out. But what happened to the rest of his body?
I imagine it as like basically sort of like, because I've heard some bits of what you've done, and it's kind of like I imagine it's like for the eye, like let's start with the arm, the eye. For the arm, it's sort of like just like I feel like it's a sort of weird disconnect. Like his body, like that part of his body, sort of liquefies and just suddenly starts to push the arm, or at least in many ways it could be just like a limb just popping off, just ripping off of the body because the body is starting to mutilate. It's starting to shift and turn into what it the DNA is changing into what it wants to be, but it needs to
maybe
it's forcing all the cells.
Maybe we've got a bit of dark. Maybe I've got too much darkness in me. I have a very, very different idea. I imagine that over the course of the episode, limbs fall off because the body doesn't need them. He ends up as just a torso with legs and limbs off. He only needs the middle section and the head. But when you start hearing everything pouring out of him,
yeah,
that's because the top of his head has come off, and the brain has come out because the Dalek embryo is a brain with mutant stuff, embryo stuff attached to it. So the brain is the only thing that would survive, and that's the reason why he loses an eye. Is because the embryo is now in his skull. So when he falls out, the husk of the Doctor is left on the floor. Like he doesn't transform and it's just a bunch of clothes on the floor. The rest of his torso is left, but his heart stopped beating, arms and limbs aren't there. It's just a torso. And the top of his head is just empty because the embryo is not in it anymore.
It's honestly quite terrifying just to think about. Like even the eye popping out. I remember just obviously in my mind I always see like it's gonna be morbid for some people, but all right, I'm gonna say this.
I'm very worried about Spoon. Like
Spoon,
I
Spoon, look,
pre-warned Spoon in January about this episode.
I'll say this to Spoon. Spoon, you might want to mute this part of the conversation right now.
Oh God, what are you going to say?
Okay, so people, imagine, right?
Oh God.
Imagine George. Imagine George now. Imagine George as the blonde doctor on the floor. There's already blood there. His body is trying to. You can see the regeneration energy trying to save him, because that's in the story that kind of plays out that regeneration's trying to kick into, reboot his body, change his cells, fix him. Doesn't work. But now imagine he is screaming, and his eye is just literally pushing out of his head, and then
lovely.
You're seeing all the little bits behind it. The veins just boom.
Let's just.
Gone.
We probably should have said trigger warning before he started describing.
Trigger warning for
a bit late now.
Sorry.
Blimey. I was like, where's he going with this? And you're like, oh, look at all the fleshy bits in the eye socket. I'm like, Aidan. No, Aidan, don't do it. No, but
it's dark. It is dark, sir. I won't lie. Like,
it is probably. I think it might be the. The thing is that there's episode 6, the one after this, is very dark as well. But it's not dark in terms of gore. This one's the goriest and darkest in sense of what happens to the Doctor. In terms of the next Divergent story, the Doctor's not actually in it. It's called Ballroom Blitz. It's been written by James Sutton, and it's to do with the early days of the Tortured Rebirth team, and what if Fraser and Tommy didn't become friends, and it's mainly focusing on Tommy. And Fraser, but Fraser's already a unit soldier. Tommy didn't work for unit then, so that's one we've got to look forward to. But that one's also quite dark in some elements because Sutton has written it. He doesn't hold back.
I won't lie. I've heard details, guys. Sutton has a dark side.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a competition. I feel like it's now become a competition between like a couple of us to see who can go that very dark.
Yeah. And luckily, the 7th episode kind of normalizes a little bit, but even then, that's kind of got a darker side to it as well. They all get a bit dark from now on. I've just noticed. Oh God, they're not. Impossibly dark. I still think the 5th one is still possibly the goriest. Possibly.
I will say the one thing that does like stand out to me with the 5th one is definitely the scenes where you can hear the mutant side of him talking to him. Like,
voice, the personality that's now becoming him. I think as well that George did a great impression of being a Dalek as well. He didn't so much. We didn't put the filter on his voice or anything. It was just him screaming, "You will be exterminated," as himself. And I think that's where the darker points really enter because it's him. It's not the Dalek voice in his head that starts talking and becomes more prevalent as time goes on. You can understand that because he's turning into one. But it's when you hear his voice without a Dalek filter on, just screaming "exterminate," that you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And we kind of did something similar. We did something similar with Cravat Doctor and the Rani with a character played by Alia E. Tori, where she was plugged into the Axis to bring the Daleks back. And when she did that, her mind was getting warped and she started screaming Dalek chants as well. And it's always something very, very eerie when you hear people screaming Dalek chants, because with the Daleks, they're unemotional, angry creatures anyway. But in this side of things, much darker. It's much darker to hear people go there because the Daleks are based off of they are based off of the Nazis. No way around it, really. They are.
It's sad to say. I will say it was kind of heartbreaking reading that point where I was like, he has to start turning, and I'm like, there's no.
But it is still
George's.
It's still George's finest hour in terms of performance. He goes all out.
Because it's really to say to the audience, this is like, if you really wanted to see like one of the darkest endings for the Doctor, this is it. Like if you like, because he does like if we have to be technical about it, he technically does die. Like it is.
But yeah,
And
the
it's
personality.
grim.
Well, yeah, the personality disappears, and an embryo comes out of his body. Like it's no longer physically or mentally him. So yeah, whilst he became something else, the person he was is no longer there, so he's dead. But even then, you did write in some very interesting things, like Daleks, the character of Dalek Storm, and having doctorisms, like calling the TARDIS old girl, and trying to get back into his TARDIS to fly off, but to destroy everything. So he's kind of got like Dalek thoughts, whilst also having mannerisms of the Doctor still there. Like he's still, like having a Dalek call the TARDIS old girl and the TARDIS reject him and everything like that. That's been a very interesting turn, I thought.
It's kind of like his. I guess you could say there's still. It's like old habits, basically. Like it's
Well, I suppose what you're saying is that
like
he fought so hard against the programming, whilst he failed, part of him still fell into the final personality because he fought so hard against it, and he really did till the last minute. That maybe he imprinted some of that old personality onto this Dalek, maybe.
Yeah, and it's why like whenever like because it's that thing of if I ever like if this character ever showed up again in anything, like I always thought he needs to have something different about him. He needs to have like, because you got to think he used to be the Doctor, so there's elements of that.
That's what's really interesting to me about this Dalek. Obviously, we've left at the end of the episode the Dalek is actually still alive. It's just in this dead universe now. And other than that, it's it's still alive. There are options there, and I think we have discussed potential options to explore either the character or versions of that character again. But again, it's still very early days, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie. This idea actually came from something back from my stop motion days when I used to make all those stop motions and stuff. Yeah, it was going to that whole idea of an alternate Doctor being a Dalek was going to be in one of the stories I did, and I just thought that's too good an element to throw away, because it feels like I don't feel like anyone's ever really done that. Like had the Doctor become the thing he hates the most in the one of the things he hates the most in the universe. And
I mean, that makes a lot more sense now as to why the Doctor's personality may be stuck around in this particular Dalek. It's because he hates the Daleks, and the Daleks are hateful. Maybe that's why.
Yeah,
the personality remained.
You can imagine it's the hateful part of his personality that's stayed true, that the Dalek honed in on. That when you could say, like, I guess you could say in one way, if we were to be very like philosophical about this episode or whatnot, or psychological, you could say it's his mind, because he was trying to fight it and he was saying, I hate the Daleks and whatnot. He's feeding it, like he's feeding that mutation.
Yeah, the pain and anger he feels towards the situation only actually made things worse.
Yeah, and honest to God, I love the interactions between him and like Benji's Davros, because it just feels like I feel
I'm very grateful.
Benji,
I'm very grateful to Benji for still doing them, because he did mention that he does fan productions on the Big Finish podcast. He didn't name drop or anything. I wouldn't expect him to, because it's not entirely looking professional to start name dropping people on a different podcast, because they are, after all, officially licensed by the BBC. If they start endorsing others, you know what I mean? It doesn't look good. So either way, Benji, but I remember the weekend or two after he'd recorded those lines, I listened to the Next Big Finish podcast, and he mentioned that he does do an occasional Davros voice in some fan productions, which was really nice. I thought, well, there you go. Yeah. Now, we are going to have to move on to Supers now, Aidan. We've been talking for 45 minutes about Doctor Divergence. But what I will say is, before we do that, something I hadn't mentioned before, but when Benji recorded the lines for Davros for this particular release, he also told me that he got a little bit bored whilst or a little bit like he well, not bored, but like he procrastinated from doing what he should have been doing, and ended up also recording like a kind of a little scene from Planet of the Daleks. And then so at the end of the recording, there's this nice little gift he's given me of an actual like which is edited to be just like a big finish scene, but from Planet of the Daleks, and he plays some Thals and some Daleks as well. So I thought to close out this segment, I would play that. So yes, thank you very much, Aidan. I will see you in a minute for Supers Volume 2. And
No problem.
And yes, see you in a moment, and everyone enjoy this little segment. Overton Audios presents.
These powers are no choice, but how you move forward, that is completely your choice.
Good to see you're keeping in good spirits.
Very funny. Now, what do you want?
What are you saying, Sergeant?
How did you get over there so quickly and back, Cochrane?
I don't understand, sir.
You do!
But Mr. Stevenson asked me to do something for him in return for our lives back.
But we did nothing wrong. We shouldn't have to pay him back for anything.
He's asked that you and I start working at the company.
You will go in there and you will take out this plantation. That is a direct command from your superior. Do you copy that, soldier? Christ, Max! Get down!
Now let's not cause a scene.
Fine. Just let me walk out of here.
I can't do that.
Oh my god! Everyone, get down! Lucy! Get down!
I'm only trying to... Supers Volume 2, coming the 20th of May 2023 at 12 p.m. And welcome back to the podcast once again. I am here with Aidan O'Connor. I'm not going to ask you how you are. Hello. Because I did that earlier. But we are now going to talk about Supers Volume 2. Now, Supers Volume 2 isn't out yet. The trailer will be coming out on the 13th of May, which is just a few days after this podcast is out, followed by it being weekly from the 20th of May until the 10th of June. Can you believe it, Aidan, that we're already nearly halfway through the year?
It's insane to me, sir.
How are we halfway through 2023?
It's unbelievable, to be honest. You know, it's like, I mean, what was coming out last year? It does bog my mind when you...
Well, I remember I did actually watch one of your old vlogs from August on Super Circuit, and I was like, that was August. I was like, that was August you did that. But yeah, looking at the schedule I've got, this time last year, oh my god, Sherlock Holmes Volume 2 was coming out, and then Torchwood Rebirth came out, the first volume of the Torchwood stuff we're doing. That's like, that feels like ages ago, but it really isn't. Things just are really fast.
Wow. And there's so much changed. I mean, like with Nexus is already out, so I mean that's
another thing as well. Like you think about where we were last year and where we thought we were, and like, you know, to be a little bit coy about it, which fan universe we thought we were attached to. It's a completely different thing now. But that's the thing, like that's like, also mad. But one thing that did come out around that time last year was Supers Volume 1. That came out in roughly September sort of time. So we're looking at maybe like 7 or 8 months now since the last volume. But one thing that is a recurring thing is your character, sir. And you're playing David Cochrane, who is a man from Ireland who can run very fast. And as we know from Volume 1, he wasn't very good at getting to places on time. The kind of sense of irony about things. And then he finds himself in the middle of London after, you know, running off, thinking he'd been fired. He stormed out, ran, and then all of a sudden shot himself at super speed into London and found himself for about 6 weeks homeless. Then he comes across Mike and Phoebe Chaddy. Mike can read minds, and Phoebe can levitate things, and essentially can also, I suppose, to an extent, she can also fly because she can levitate herself. they all come together as a big group because there are people hunting them who know they have abilities and see them as a danger. They go abroad, they hide for a few more weeks. Jake returns after a few months of disappearing. They all come together, but in the finale, Jake's power base begins to go nuclear and is about to explode. And then Phoebe, using her flying/levitation abilities, flies off with Jake into the sky to let him explode in the sky, which he does, but that leaves the characters completely fragmented. And one thing that happens, that I can at least say happens within the first minute or two of Volume 2, is that Mr. Stevenson essentially blackmails everyone into working for him, except for you. You run off.
Yeah, I sort of get off scot-free.
Yeah, but you've got nowhere to run, despite being able to run. That's, I didn't mean to make the pun, but like literally, your character is having to go from place to place really quickly because they have a person who can know where people are. That's their power. So you can't stay in one place for too long because they can find you. There's a guy who can teleport and chase after you. There's just so much going on. So with David, all the other characters are fragmented, lost, or imprisoned. He has to really kind of try and find a way to get back at the company for what they've done. And he finds a new friend, doesn't he?
He does, and it's someone who's very familiar with the Overton Audios crowd, even this podcast, I might add.
Yes. It is Mr. Eamon Longman, who plays a character in Supers as well. It's not often that's the thing. I've got him to play quite a few characters in audios, but to be honest, he's been much more of a writer when it comes to these audios. So it's been nice to have him as a main character and a recurring character. It's been really, really nice. But
he's very proficient. I mean, I will say, like, the stuff he's written for example, for Torchwood, or for like some episodes have just been off the charts. They've been very, very good character stuff.
But his power is that he can control computers by thinking. So if he thought about sending a text, it would send a text. If he said, if he said, I want to text Aidan saying hello, you'd suddenly get a text saying hello.
For me, that would be I'd be just questioning, okay, why it wouldn't be that he sent it. It'd be more that just, Eamon said hello. That's
how did he get my number?
He normally just goes, hey man.
He essentially has that power, and your character David can run a super speed, so that you make quite the team. And throughout the volume, you are trying your best to find as much information as you can on the company, its history, its origins, and how you can positively move forward by freeing your friends who you haven't seen in months. Because we jump ahead, literally the beginning of Volume 2 is set immediately after Volume 1. But then there's a 6-month gap, and that's where things get interesting with regards to the development of the characters. I've always liked the way, because Supers is based off of a show called Heroes that was on NBC between 2006 and 2010. I always liked the way that they kind of treated their series based on the graphic novel. So it was always, every series was called a volume and every episode was called a chapter. And it was just, I really like the way they did that. And they would also go back in time quite a lot because of the graphic novel nature of it. You were able to kind of go back in time and still follow the story. And they did it really, really well, and still being able to explain the story quite well without it being too confusing. Because I know that sometimes when you get to these massive TV shows, when you go back in time and everything, it can become so difficult.
From what you've shown me, I remember you showing me some clips. It's a very, it's dark, but it does have those heroic elements in there. For one thing, I love the Christopher Eccleston character. When they introduce him, I like that the powers he has. It's a very simple power, but it's effective. and I like how I don't know. I don't think any of like any character. I don't think my character has that similar thing, but it's the idea of not being noticed, just keeping secluded and away, and no.
I really love. We did episode 3. I'm not going to say too much about it because I want people to experience it properly. But we have actually lifted that and adapted it from the graphic novel for Heroes, and I really liked the way it turned out because the characters have to go through a lot of risk in order to obtain the information they need, and they end up making enemies along the way, or they end up making new friends as well, and it just opens up a lot of story opportunities for later. Because, as a reminder to everyone, with Supers, we've already made the last 3 volumes, volumes 8, 9, and 10. We made volumes 1 to 7 when I was a kid, and this is very much us going back and basically remaking those stories, but in a way that we could, in a way that we could kind of expand the story a little bit more. And I've really enjoyed doing it. I think it's been very, very fun.
It's really allowed you to sort of bridge the gap a bit better for yourself, and it kind of, I mean, from what I've seen you do for volume 1 and parts of 2, it really feels kind of like you're sort of building up to a nice little bridge of the 2 parts. Like, the later volumes are kind of, I guess you could say, where you began. I guess you could say where you began with audio, and now you're coming back around with a more experienced mindset.
Yes,
which
exactly.
Is,
of course, we've also had a bit of our what you might call our Supers super fan, which is Abi Louise. She's refusing to listen to volumes 8, 9, and 10 until we get to 7. And that's something I'm really interested in seeing, though, because a lot of people have heard volumes 8 to 10 and are now being able to go back and re-explore the characters, but she's going through it in a linear fashion. So she's watched volume 1. We're about to release volume 2. She has to wait a couple of years before she can jump back. And it's a really, really, like, I'm really interested to see her reaction to it. And in all fairness, maybe when we get to volume 7 finally, I'll wait for her to finish volumes 8 to 10 as well, and then I'll just sit down with her and get on the podcast maybe and go, right, thoughts? Because I'd be really interested to hear her thought on the whole thing. I'd love to hear like how she thinks maybe it fitted together or didn't, because wow.
Well, you gotta think it's like it's someone who's coming at this from a complete new perspective, she's coming around instead of I guess you could say. She's coming around instead of actually, I guess, going straight to it. So she's just she's following along from volume 1, then she 2 to 7, then we'll be coming out, and it's, as you said, it'll be all new to her, which is going to be, I can imagine that podcast with you two is just going to be manic, because she's just going to be just there with her hands on her head, just going, Connor, what have you done?
Yeah, but I'm really looking forward to, again, I know we're going and jumping a bit ahead here, but I'm really looking forward to exploring in further volumes David's character, because I've always kind of really enjoyed the way that we've been able to sort of make it a bit more of a domestic kind of story. We've got families, we've got friends. It's not just random people. They forge relationships, you've got a father and daughter who one can read minds, the other one can levitate. You've also got the brother and son attached to that family who's separated from them and is trying to get back to them, but they're really mixed in terms of their allegiances as well. It's a huge thing. Whereas you've got David with Eamon's character, who's called Harry, with them trying to work out everything whilst kind of having a buddy, good cop, bad cop sort of scenario to things.
Yeah, it's kind of like if I was to describe them in a nice way, it's like the buddy cop dynamic duo, because it's sort of
and we are introducing. Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say it's kind of like I I don't know if the character. I don't think the character's similar, but I kind of liken it to a Hot Fuzz situation, where they're in the action and they're just trying to, just to try, just getting along with each other and trying to make things happen the way they want them to in the right way.
Yeah, it's exactly that. We've also got a couple of new characters who are going to be joining on Supers Volumes from then on, and that's actually, ironically, that's also Abby's character. Abby's going to be joining as a cast member, and so is Chelsea Lagan. Which has been really nice as well, because obviously for a little while now, she's been mainly known as Julia Breslin. So it's been nice to have, and obviously she's been in Time Traveller before, but the stuff we've got planned here with Time Traveller, she had a storyline and was able to, you know what I mean? That one was a bit more smaller scale because we had Julia Breslin as well. Whereas here, Julia Breslin finished, we're able to sort of expand more and really develop on characters much further.
Yeah, because it's how I put. I mean, like, you can think about it in a way that, like, in a nice way, the book is currently done on, like, on Julia, so it's like you can actually give more to this character because that'll be the more prominent one.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, I'll say it's like the work that Chelsea and has been doing over on TT has been incredible. With different original characters and all that kind of,
well, this is the thing.
Chelsea's
already written her first audio drama. She's been editing audio dramas there. She's just gone from strength to strength over there, and I think that's great. We have talked about like maybe her writing something for me, but we always say, like, she's always said that she cannot write Doctor Who for the life of her. She just can't.
Yeah,
like,
it's just
she's not much of a Whovian, ironically.
Well, it's just saying to her, it won't be Doctor Who. It'll be, no,
it won't be. But I'm really excited to explore like all these new things that we'll be doing at Overton Audios. Like we are going from we are starting new eras with different characters and everything. It's been very interesting to do. But Supers will be something that I want to kind of add on to be a little bit more frequent, because it has been a long time since Volume 1. But I have mentioned before that we are doing something with the schedule that enables us to be able to be a little bit more freer with it. So hopefully, like, I do have a plan for when Volume 3 is coming out. It will be next year, because I've still got the schedule. I've still got the schedule.
Nice way to drop the bomb on them. Just
just
be like, here
just
you go.
Enjoy this. But no, we are going to be doing a few more things, and we like, it's just because this year is still a fixed schedule, whereas everything else is not. We can be a little bit more relaxed with things, and thus, make things happen.
I won't lie to you. Like, I think a lot of like different channels that focus on Doctor Who content are kind of like, it's the thing of like, well, we have got stuff going on, but there is this massive thing hanging over everyone called the 60th. So it's like,
well, the 60th. Don't get me started on that. I'm so behind still. I'm so behind. Oh God. Anyway, we are now drifting off subject. So I shall bid thee a farewell to you, Aidan. Thank you very much for this, for being here. For talking about both Divergence and Supers. I'm really excited to see what people think about Supers Volume 2. Once again, in case anybody missed it at the beginning, the trailer for Supers Volume 2 will be coming out on the 13th of May, followed by the volume beginning on the 20th of May, ending on the 10th of June. And once again, Aidan, thank you very much. And shall we say hello to future Chadders and future Eamon?
Okay, let's do that. Aloha, future Chadders and Eamon.
Welcome back to the podcast, and I'm back here with Eamon. Hello, Eamon.
Yes. Hello, Cheddars.
Are you well?
That was long.
Yeah.
I'm good, yeah.
So, did you enjoy listening to that segment where I spoke to Aidan about Doctor Who Divergence and Supers Volume 2?
No.
Oh, okay. Shall we read some comments then?
I enjoyed the Supers Volume 2 part, but
Oh,
He knows how I feel about that that Divergent story.
I should also just preface to you, but by the time that
He
this
is
comes
aware.
out, that Divergent story has been out already for about a
I
week.
know. I
So you
know.
can just
I
in
know.
case just in case you're holding back any sort of spoilers that you were worried about
Oh,
releasing.
okay. No, I was just gonna say he knows how I feel about that story. Don't you, Aidan? That's right, Aidan. That's fucking right.
Right. So anyway, the comments reading.
Yes, comments. Comments. Yay.
Oh, good.
So, it's Eamon time. Coming in first is Henry Woodman Into the Multiverse trailer. And Dr. Redivivus is the only comment, and he says, Dalek Ted, the Candy Man. I wonder if this drama will have a strong comic element. It will. Yep, next.
Amen, man. Amen.
Next comment. I'm coming in episode 1 of Henry Woodman Into the Multiverse, The Soul of the Sun. By who? By me. That's damn right, by me. Dr. Redivivus, he's gonna learn here as a comic element. He says, I have a feeling there must be a document in the Overton Audios vault which maps out the different universes that form this multiverse and explains how they relate to each other. I don't think there is. This particular universe is an interesting one, and it showcases rather nicely a version of the Torchwood team. Although there is a MacGuffin driving along this fast-paced adventure, it's in many ways a character-driven piece. Yes. As we see how the relationships between the different members of Torchwood change over the course of the story. The cast, especially Lewis and James, really throw themselves into their roles, and this makes for compelling listening. Well, thank you. I liked the story. So I wrote it. Lesbian Spoon says, I shed nothing, but Nikki Boyce mention, yeah.
What?
CSB says, aha, a brilliant first episode of the Strange Volume. I'm really hoping that the next couple will be just as good as this one was. 9 out of 10.
Oh.
They won't be. This is the best one. Do you want to hear does everyone want to hear a fun fact about this story? Chad has told me to make it fun. I did not.
No.
Chad has told me to make it comedy. Like Dr. Redivivus said, comic element. And Chad has went, make it funny. And instead, I wrote The Soul of the Sun. I cried while writing that one.
Cool.
And that's when I knew Cheddars will not be happy.
Well, anyway, so the next comments we've got are from the Change is Coming video, which is, of course, about the live action stuff that we shot in Cardiff back in January. We have one comment here from Dr. Redivivus, and he says, Overton Audios live action drama, excellent news. It is indeed. Very good news. We've been working on it for quite a while. We've got some bits and pieces still in the works. It's almost there. But it will be, hopefully, people like it. I've personally really enjoyed making it. It's been something new and nice. Yes. So, moving on to Henry Woodman Into the Multiverse, Episode 2, Sweet as Sugar. First comment here from CSP, who says, well, now I'll know never to take that sugar binge. Really good work, but it might have just been a little too sweet for my usual liking. Which is fine. Everyone has different thresholds to sweets, and your threshold is just a bit heavier than others. That is all. Next comment from Dr. Redivivus says, congratulations to Rory Sherwood for a sweet story inspired by the redemption trope. This episode really does take Henry Woodman into a very weird part of the multiverse. Rory's clear world building gives the audience instant access to this strange world. Lewis Royalhouse gives another performance full of energy and commitment, and his comic timing is perfect. Connor, in covering off all the character duties, you ensured that each one was distinct and hits the right note. dark comedy worth of the Seventh Doctor's encounter with the Candyman. Thank you very much, Michael.
You didn't play all the other characters. Who were the Overton brothers?
The Overton brothers. It was Charlie Ciccone, I think, maybe. No, sorry, Conrad Ciccone.
Maybe.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But no, as of recording this at the moment, we've still got episodes 3 and 4 to come out. But I'm a busy man now at the moment, and we'll try and remember to pick up episodes 3 and 4 of
I'll remember.
You will, yeah.
I'll remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I'm in one of them.
You are.
I want to hear the praise.
Well, anyway, speaking of reading and listening to other audio dramas, shall we go to the Big Finish discussions with Abi Louise that I have with her?
I mean, if I say no, it's not like we're not going to do it. So, yes, absolutely.
And welcome back to the podcast. I am joined here by Abi Louise. Hello, Abi. How are you?
Hello, Connor. I'm good.
Oh, good. And we're doing some Big Finish discussions. And today's podcast, or this month's podcast even, we're going to be talking about the Fifth Doctor box set, Conflicts of Interest.
From Big Finish Productions, The Fifth Doctor Adventures, Conflicts of Interest.
We're in trouble.
We gathered that.
Something's wrong with the TARDIS.
Something's always wrong with the TARDIS.
Come now, mademoiselle, you are playing a joke on
Please,
an old
monsieur, what is the year?
Don't play smart with me. I don't like it when people play smart.
What's that sound?
man. What sound?
That, I don't know, humming, would you call it? Buzzing?
Reno, I reckon we're in trouble. Nissa, you need to jump.
But then they'll capture me.
Which is a safer option than what I'm going to try to do. Madame, is it just that sound and the new visitor which has unsettled you so?
Taken.
Oh, yes. How interesting.
Doctor! Doctor, what's happening? I didn't say anything.
Let's hope not. It's like a ball of energy. It's changing. Taking on a different shape.
How much do they understand?
More than they're letting slip, but less than they need to.
They want this all to look like an accident if anyone comes snooping. It's far harder to do that with someone you've gunned down.
Beauty and terror, Doctor. All intertwined.
Now let's hope we're clear enough.
Yes.
What did you think? It was a two stories, 3 parts each.
So the right. So
it's got your favorite. Is it your favorite? Is it your favorite companion, Nissa?
It's my favorite. I'd say it's my second favorite TARDIS thing in Big Finish. First being 6, Connie and Flip. See a pattern. Now, the second story definitely saved it. The first story was, meh.
See, I agree. What was the first story called again?
Meh.
Okay, well, I know that. Just trying to get to the page as quickly as possible. Basically, beautiful soundtrack. Always lovely to hear the TARDIS, that particular TARDIS crew again. We don't really get to hear them all that often now. It was called Friendly Fire, was the first episode. Lovely soundtrack. Good to hear the TARDIS crew again. I wish we had some clarity on their timeline. Because there's an era from when they did the monthly range in the 2009 to 2011 era where Nissa was older. And also Tegan was older, but something had de-aged them. But they were older and wiser.
So this is all in between Mordred Undead and Arc of Infinity. So this is before they pick up Turlo.
Okay, so is this part of Five's Adric Morning storyline?
Oh yeah.
Because
also so basically the Mark stuff is after this.
Wait,
but
so
this is before Mark.
This is before
Mark.
Mark.
So Mark is before Turlo.
Oh yeah.
but this is before Mark.
Right. Okay. Cool.
It's confusing, and the older Nissa stuff. It's not older Tegan. It's Tegan just after what's the one with the boats?
The
with Turlo.
Oh, was this a big phone story with boats or just the TV?
No. TV.
Enlightenment.
So it's after Enlightenment.
The one with the boats. What you mean? Not
the one with the boats.
Yeah, it's not the one with the Black Guardian and the White Guardian. The Guardians of Time.
No.
It's the boat one.
No, the boat one. So the older Nissa stuff for Turlo and Tegan is after Enlightenment, but for Nissa it's way after Terminus.
Yes, because she's also appeared in some War Master stuff as well, and lots of different things. And then they did. I think it was it? It wasn't. What one was it? It was like, wasn't Cobwebs, was it? There was a
Cobwebs
storyline.
was the one when she came back.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's good memory. That was maybe 3 or 4 years ago I listened to that, so I'm glad I got the memory on that. Okay, cool. Right, so with that in context, the first part, or shall I say the first story, which was a 3-parter, felt very much more like an allegory as opposed to a story. Which was, you had the Doctor going to visit his friend who was not a resident well, he was a resident of the planet, but if you know what I'm trying to say, he was not native to the planet with the species there. He kept to himself, but then basically was gaslit by humans there. I'm assuming I think they were humans, and into being the
humanoid at least.
Into being the foreign invader who's stealing from the people living there, and then basically murdered. And it's about then the people trying to cover it up. However, it's very much a story which didn't need 3 parts. It could have been easily a 2-parter because it's literally, in a nutshell. And by the way, spoilers ahead, everyone, because I'm literally about to list out stage by stage what happens in that story, because it's a very simple list, which is they get there, meet people, bit suspicious, but nonetheless they go with them to find the friend. Friend is dead. They drive back. Oh no, they're evil. Better run. And then they run. And then it's basically they gaslight them into being the bad people, and that's the end.
Yeah, basically.
Again, it feels very much like
not very. I've said this before. I like with Big Finish. I like them taking opportunities to do things that they couldn't have done on screen. Like as an example, with the 5th Doctor team, there's an audio called the Emerald Tiger, and they have a whole train chase and all this stuff, and it's really dramatic, and I love them doing stuff that they couldn't have done on screen. It's like pushing the boundaries that they couldn't have shown visually because budget and stuff.
Of course,
this could have just been on telly. There wasn't any frills.
This could have been something that, and it's going to sound like I'm really condemning it, and if it sounds a bit harsh, and I don't intend it to be, this could be something made by any fan filmmaker, and it will still look great.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
they could have somebody could have filmed this in a quarry somewhere, and it would have worked still.
Exactly. I don't think there's any harm in having smaller scale stories, because sometimes they're a bit simple and simple enough to listen to if you're doing something. The second story, the second 3-part, was a lot more detailed, which I think maybe that's why they did the balance, because because some of these box sets have actually been unused monthly range stories.
Yeah.
Especially the first box set, The Lost Resort. The Lost Resort was definitely a monthly range. You kind of just got that vibe. And then the other ones, they added other stories, were just like a little 2-parts I think they had planned. Because I remember a point, and this is me going back into history a bit, when they announced when the monthly range was going to end, they had a whole list for monthly ranges that were going to be coming out. And then suddenly the entire list suddenly changed. And I was like, where's this gone? And they've released some since, like with the 7th Doctor and I think it was the Flying Dutchman box set they did with 7. That was originally on the list for monthly range, and then it was gone. And then the Lost Resort was also there. That was released 269, never happened. Ended up being a box set. So I know that there have been some that have been more monthly ranges, and now I feel like this is maybe their first step into not doing monthly ranges. And I'm like,
probably.
I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, I will have a quick look.
The second story definitely excelled compared to the first one.
Yeah. The second one was called the Edge of the War, which was basically about a character trying to prevent World War II from really reaching this village, and
Yeah, the
wanted to
thingy
preserve
line,
it.
the I can't remember what it's called now. Come on, Abby, you're a bloody historian. The that line thing. The French border.
Yes.
The French border that built an indestructible. It's the Titanic all over again. They built an indestructible line of defense that was destructed.
All I'll say is, and this is a bit of more of an inside joke for you and me, because this is a future audio. I noticed how everyone in that story had French accents.
Oh, oui.
Yeah, I listened to it and it was in Paris, and I was just like, oh, I can hear everyone's got French accents. For those of you who are wondering what we mean, listen out for October. Anyway,
yes.
Anyway, I really enjoyed The Edge of War. The only thing I'm really confused about again is the reason I'm asking about the placement for the story is because what happens to Tegan at the end?
She's waiting around for a year.
I felt bad because obviously in terms of how they get into, again, spoilers, in terms of how they enter the time bubble, there's a bit of time dilation, even though it's only a few seconds between them. It's a bit of time dilation. So when Tegan was there, she was actually there for a year waiting for them to show up. And then when the time dilation got stopped, she just reverted back to when she arrived and had to wait another year. So she waited 2 years, not one.
Basically, yeah.
No wonder. I mean, she was very angry, and I went, "Yeah, you know what? Fair enough." I'm like, why aren't? But I'm like, I felt like, and obviously, correct me if I'm wrong. For me, and from what I've seen of Tegan, I can't see her wanting to stay. I'm surprised she was just like, let's just go. I'm like, no, you're what? I was just like, you're very annoyed at the moment, and you know. You got you left in Resurrection of the Daleks for seeing a lot of death, which is fair enough.
Yeah, but this is earlier Tegan, isn't it? This is earlier Tegan. She's finally she's given up the whole Heathrow thing now, and she's like, screw it, I'm gonna have some fun.
Yeah, I did feel bad for her.
And I think it might be a case of I need a distraction from how I'm feeling. Take me to another planet, please.
Yeah, because the thing is, I was also thinking about it and going, there are other times for Tegan in Big Finish where she's had massive time gaps like this. Like obviously they've done one where the Fifth Doctor met her after she'd left, and they met again. I think it was a Cyberman based story, and there was a very heavy storyline to do with that, which is why I'm annoyed that it's all just kind of been retconned. I feel like that was a story that really could have been really good to handle. I'd like to. I don't know. I know that obviously with Doctor Who, the stories that come out all over the place anyway, like back and forth in timelines. I can't exactly complain about that when I do that with my own stuff I make anyway, and I know I expect people to do it. But the thing is, I also make playlists of story orders, whereas when I go on like these, it just goes, it's set between here, and I'm like, yeah, but your last release said that too. Like, when's this?
A lot happens in this cab.
There is actually, I'm actually a part of a Big Finish listeners Facebook group, and they update an Excel every month from releases to say what order the stories are in.
Okay.
Because they talk to the writers on Twitter and get the answers, and then they write it all down. Sense. But the thing is, I just haven't looked at it in a while. But then, the problem is there's so many. But then there's so many.
There's like. There's so many, like you're saying with that Big Finish one with Tegan, her like older one, but then you also have the Goodbye Sarah Jane thing they did where they mentioned that Nyssa and Tegan were together, and then obviously she was in that last episode with 13, and no Nyssa was mentioned. It's like what? Well,
this
there's a lot going on.
Well, that's the thing. The sad thing is, this is where we start talking about Chibnall. Sadly,
sorry.
But no, it is because in essence, Chibnall basically came out and said he didn't really pay attention to the expanded media, and I'm like, that's where you're screwed, because everyone does. Everyone's like, what's this? What about this timeline? But yeah, the timeline I see from that Big Finish lot are basically on the Facebook group. It's basically arrows saying this timeline, this happened in this order, but then it went on to an alternate timeline and became this, and I'm like, oh god.
Yes. Well, it's Doctor Who. It's going to happen, isn't it? Let's face it.
I still really like the way that, for example, what they do with the Doctor Who Lost stories now is that they're actually part of the original timeline before the Time War affect them. So when they did Return of the Cybermen instead of Revenge of the Cybermen, John Dorney, I believe, wrote it. And he had written in a last scene where a Time Lord, but a Time Lord arrives and says the timeline is changing, you'll be sent back. And he's like, what? No. And then you just hear him going, and then he goes, there appears to be some sort of time war. And then he gets pulled out of time. And then the TARDIS just drum hits and they all get up and they're back on the space station again. And it's the beginning of Revenge of the Cybermen. Like their minds just get wiped to the previous story and they just reset. I like that as a little bit of my own little headcanon is that all lost stories happened, but they got affected by the time war reverberating back.
Timey-wimey stuff, yeah.
So,
makes sense.
I don't know how we got here from Tegan being stranded for 2 years.
Neither do I, but no, that's the second story. The second story definitely works much better. It's all timey stuff once again, but you can't go wrong with time fractures and all that stuff. No. It's an easy one to write, but it's also got like the drama and stuff, and it was nice for Tegan to have a little bit of a love interest there as well.
Nyssa I feel like Nyssa in this volume was very much the primary companion, because Tegan, it's not that Tegan can't handle herself, and I'm not saying that Nyssa can't also, but Tegan was very much left on, not on the sidelines, but she was left with the secondary characters leading them.
I listened to the behind the scenes stuff because I always do, it's me. And Janet is like, she had no time in the booth with Peter. So they literally had like one scene together the whole time. And Peter was like, it feels really strange. Nobody's abusing me. Somebody's being nice to me in the booth because I was with Sarah all the time. And it's like...
I'm going, oh, nobody's abusing me. How strange.
Why is nobody shouting at me?
But that's the thing, is I think because the thing is Tegan is a force to be reckoned with.
Oh yeah.
So like it works anyway. I think Nyssa has an authority, but sadly, because of her nice nature, it can be overruled. Whereas Tegan can just sometimes, when Tegan needs to be a bitch, she can be a bitch. That's like her unsaid motto. But that's the thing, like, you know, well,
unless it's early big finish. And then it's written for Tegan. And it's Nyssa doing it. And every single time I listen to it, I'm like, can you go and redo these again? Just have Tegan do it instead. Because Nyssa shouting at the Doctor is just really weird.
Yeah. But that was early Big Finish. They have learned since. Now the fact, like, that's, I mean, again, that's a nice thing about Big Finish now, is that the fans sort of inherit the work as well.
Yeah.
It's like the same way that like, we're going to get into like really heavy subjects about character identifying and all this stuff. If you got someone who didn't know Doctor Who to go and write these characters and you give them a really basic bio, they'd never get it right. The fans who examine this, like my number one reference is always the Rani, because a lot of people, even the people interviewing, go, "Isn't that just the Master but female?" And even when Missy arrived, people, even because this is something I was talking to actually Aidan about in a previous section that the audience may have heard, but talking about that is that people, when Missy became a thing back in 2014, everyone went, "But we've got the Rani." And it's like, it's not the Rani. It's not who she is. But yes, anyway, I've personally... You all right?
Yeah, I nearly sneezed.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, but anyway. No, you're good. You're good. But that's the thing, like, again, the first one, I enjoyed the first one. I enjoyed Friendly Fire. It had a lot of tension to it. I just feel like the weight of what followed didn't match the amount of tension we were given.
Yeah.
If it was like something that they'd, you know, whilst distracting them, they'd done something to, well, I mean, obviously they had done something to the shuttle, but like they'd done something to one of them at the same time, like, you know, they like to, like, you know, a time bomb or whatever, or like a bit of poisoning or whatever. They were like, yes, they were keeping them on side and actually doing something, but it wasn't really. It was just goodbye. Thank you for joining the tour.
Thank you for not killing us.
Well, it was very much like, thank you for joining us.
That's one thing I loved about episode 2 as well. Spoilers. The Doctor got it wrong.
He Is this in part
which I
two?
loved.
Is this in part 2 of Friendly
This
Fire?
is in episode 2. Episode 2.
Oh, in Edge of the War.
Yeah.
Okay.
When he got to the dude, the big dude, the baddie dude.
Yes.
He was like, "You're a Time Lord. Why have you got this technology? And why are you off of Gallifrey?" And he was like, "You what? What are you fucking on about?"
He was like, "Oh yes, of course you'd be a Time Lord with a name like the Count. I'm the Doctor, and you must be a Time Lord."
Literally. Like...
And then there was like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Oh."
And then you just have the typical like 5 Bumble.
And then this is just like, "You're right, Doctor." And he's like, yes.
You seem to have got it wrong, Doctor. You imagine if Tegan was there for that moment.
Yeah. Oh God, her sarcasm.
You're not always right.
Yeah. She'd be kind of doing the awkward, "Doesn't look so good, Doc." He's just like, "Yes, all right, Tegan. Yeah, so who are you then?"
Yes.
They would
Anyway.
be like that. Yeah. The thing, I think I had a lot more fun listening to the second story than the first one. The first one was, again, I call it an reintroduction to 5 because it's been so long since his last volume. And they've announced another volume coming out in September called Into the Night. I think it's another set of 3-parters, isn't it?
Yeah.
I just hope I hope that they, sounds so harsh to say. I just hope it isn't. I just hope they aren't the same like Friendly Fire. Again, that was a nice smaller scale one. But yes. Do you have any honorable mentions?
No.
Okay. All right. I will say a quick honorable mention. I really enjoyed The Robots Volume 6.
Beginning roleplay now.
From Big Finish Productions, The Worlds of Doctor Who, The Robots, Volume 6.
Hi. No. Yes. 2 of you? Yeah.
Siblings can be so different. Nature versus nurture.
You can't trust anyone round here. There are weird things going on.
Hi there. Good morning. Good morning. That's definitely not what this is. There's 2 of me, too.
Oh, well, this is awkward.
It seems terrorist activity has recommenced.
She's a robot duplicate. Well, one of you is.
Rollout has been scheduled.
Look at today. This could be it. The uprising.
D770 to D780. Designated security duty.
The DOMs are the worst. Dead eyes. Always watching you.
D781 and D782. Designated maintenance. Follow.
Impatience runs in the family.
They're not alive.
That all depends on your definition of life.
Species? You're not a species.
They've been evolving.
There is no override.
You are leaving today, right?
Oh, you won't be leaving this building alive, Chenka.
Liv! She's got a squadron of DOMs!
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
We all have somewhere that we came from, even if it's somewhere we need to run away from.
Which was the final volume of The Robots, and I've seen a lot of people on Twitter when it got released being very mean about it. And they said,
Do you know, I haven't listened to any of the robot stuff.
This is what the joke is about. The joke is just all 10 of their fans will really enjoy this.
See, I get that with Paternoster, so
No, you've got a niche audience.
literally all they do, because I'm on that Running Down Corridors podcast with Chris and Martin, and all they ever do is like, Abby is the one Paternoster Gang fan. I'm like, hi. No, I've not. The 5th Doctor one is the most recent audio that I've downloaded because I've been going back and listening to all my old ones, to be fair. I just re-listened to Quicksilver. I re-listened to the first 8th of March. Because it's great. It's great that like Big Finish are always like releasing things, but they do cost. And at the end of the day, I've got a massive library of stuff that I've not listened to for years. So why not go back and re-listen to it all?
True.
You know?
Yeah. So with the robots,
But no, I've never listened to robots. Never listened to robots.
Yeah, it was really the thing is the robots is very much a sort of more niche story. It's about the gap. It's set in the year gap that literally happens in the course of an episode of the second episode of Ravenous 2. Liv says she wants to spend some more time on Caldor with her sister and make things right with the robots. And then the doctor goes, "Okay, give you a year." So he just turns the time chronometer and just pulls the switch, and they just lift off and land exactly a year later. And she's there going, "Did it?" And then you're like, "Oh, okay." So the robots is a 6-part series that takes place, or 6-volume series that takes place across that year. It was actually really nice. It didn't have the fanfare that I was expecting, but at the same time, it didn't need it. I was looking at it going, well, yeah, you've kind of done everything. You've done it piece by piece throughout 6 volumes. Now they got like they would change certain things about the society with the robots piece by piece until they just got to the finale and just walk in and do it. You're like, that's fair enough. Like going in and going, yeah, we've got to like destroy everything. It wouldn't make sense because why did you do all that work to begin with? It was just quite a nice little moment, and the whole thing is called the final episode is called The Final Hour, and then it just starts with Liv checking her watch, going, "He'll be here in an hour. I've got to do this in an hour." And it's really nice because at the end it ties in with the scene from Ravenous 2 when she's running over there, and you're like, "Oh, this is how it all happened. This is cool." It's kind of similar to what I do with when I've done with the Crimson Hunter. Like leading into Doctor Who episodes, and I was just like, "Oh yes," but then there's an extra scene they do with Paul, and it was so wholesome because obviously for those who've listened to it far enough, we all kind of know what's going on with Liv's character at the moment with regards to how things went in Stranded and other volumes that are coming out at the moment. They talked about the concept of like family and finding people to settle with because Paul was just like, you didn't want to stay with your sister, and she was like, "No, I like flying, I like going and seeing things." And then Paul was just like, "Yeah, but one day you'll meet someone. We'll go somewhere, and you'll connect with someone, you'll leave." And she went, "Never going to happen." And you're there going,
Hindsight.
Yeah. Another one I wanted to quickly mention was Torchwood launch date.
From Big Finish Productions, Torchwood launch date.
You sure she was flirting?
Just go and ask her.
No, missed the chance. I'm up early anyway. I really hate that job. Fix my life for me, will you, mate?
Leave it with me. I'll see what I can do.
Sorry, I don't even know your name.
Chrissy.
Hello. Nice to meet you.
Gerite, right?
You remembered? Chrissy?
What's occurring?
Look, I can't really talk. Forgot to switch my phone off.
So what about this date? I'm on to you. Matchmaking?
No, not exactly.
Well then what? Spit it out.
I'm saving the world.
Big Finish. For the love of stories.
Now, Eamon has a running sort of joke about Torchwood monthly range because they seem to be mostly Yarnto. And he's not, it's not that he's tired of it, but then as soon as Torchwood Among Us Part 2 got announced and Yarnto was on the cover, he was like, "This is set in 2020. Like, how is he back?" And it's just like, well, if there are stories there are stories there. But this story wasn't actually heavily Yarnto. It was more actually about two people we didn't know. Yarnto is kind of the anchor we have that links to Torchwood.
Yeah.
It's about two people who randomly meet at like they basically just bump into each other at the pub. And the guy spills half his pint and she offers to pay, and he goes, "No, you're all right." They have a bit of a flirt, and he walks off none the wiser that flirt happened. And then Yarnto is basically posing as his friend to him. They've done a bit of thing like a weird, not retcon, but the opposite of retcon, put ideas in his head that Yarnto and him are good friends, and he's basically trying to find out more about what this guy is doing at his job in the background, whilst this guy who never gets any luck romantically meets this woman, and they meet at the supermarket. Then Yarnto keeps doing little things to kind of make him have to go back and everything like that. So there seems to be it seems to have been like a bit of a romance trilogy that's come off of the February Valentine's Torchwood release, which was the last story of Susie Costello. Last month's was Thirst Trap, and now, yeah, that was about a dating app that hacked your phone, and if you didn't do what it said, it would erase your data from your entire life. And like bank accounts and everything. So yeah, that was a different. That was with Sergeant Andy and Reese, and then this one is with Yanto, just trying to, and a weapons company up to no good, really. Meanwhile, there's a love story in the middle of it. It wasn't anything overly complicated. It was just nice that you have tortured characters in the background. It's why I've always kind of enjoyed. It's why I enjoyed, for example, like the War Master Volume 2. I know it's a bit of a jump from Torchwood, but in War Master Volume 2, Derek Jacobi's barely in it. It's about two women who fall in love. Again, it's just like this. It's two women who fall in love across the course of the volume. However, the difference is the War Master is the War Master, so it doesn't exactly end well. But it's still, I love the stories where like the characters in the background, you know they're doing something, you know the inner workings are happening, but you're stuck watching the subplot, and you're like, oh, hang on. But then over time you become more invested in them than what's actually going on over there, and then that comes and emerges with it, and that's what I like. I like it very much. I'm passionate about this stuff. But yes, so you don't have any honourable mentions?
No.
And like I asked you last month, and I'll ask again. How was that class audio that I sent you about 3 months ago? And you said, I really want to listen to it. I need it now. How was it? Did you enjoy it? But you're telling me you've got a catalogue of stuff you've already listened to that you can listen to. I've given you something you haven't ever heard.
Oh, I haven't listened to it.
I know. You need to. You're embarrassed now, aren't you? I've called you out twice now.
Oh, I'm not bothered.
That's the problem. Anyone from the Discord who's listening, we must let her know. Message her. There we go. I'll put the call out. You've got until the 10th of May until those messages.
You have been summoned.
Indeed. Well, is there anything else you wanted to mention about the Fifth Doctor box set?
No.
Oh, very well. Me neither. Well, thank you for listening, and I shall go to future Connor and future Eamon. Hello.
Bye.
Well, I just said hello. Goodbye. And welcome back to the podcast with myself and Eamon Longman. So, Eamon, what are your plans for the next upcoming month?
Release more Kiwi Doctor stuff.
Indeed,
probably
some wonderful
I've got
Gwen
episode
content.
Episode 2 and episode 3 of Kiwi Doctor come out. And then there's a fun other little ones as well that we're putting out. Probably in what month is it? May. Yeah, which I'm excited about. I need to finish editing it, but it's fun. Yes.
Hooray!
And then I'll just work.
Yes. How is the job?
Working.
How is the job, by the way?
It's good. It's fun. I listened to the entire Rani box set at work the other day.
I've listened to the first 2 episodes now, but I need to listen to the third one. And tomorrow I'm working from home, so my plan is to listen to the third and final one tomorrow.
It's good. It's very good.
The
third one was very mean to me.
Oh, good. Well,
the third episode was very mean to me. I was at work and I was just standing in the chiller when it happened, and I went, "It's very mean to do this to my emotions. It's very rude of you."
Oh, as your tears froze.
Yeah.
Well,
it was quite sad. But next volume we've got Luke back and we've got Mrs. Wormwood, and I swear to God, if Mr. Smith doesn't come back, I'm going to be really mad, because I just really want to hear the whole da 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 again, because it's my child. I think that's my phone ringtone. It's that. So every time someone calls me, my phone goes da 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 da. I love it. I love it so much.
I feel like with the Rani box set, I hope they're lining things up to kind of do an official, because this is technically a continuation of Sarah Jane Adventures, but with the
it is.
people who are the legacy of Sarah Jane Smith. I hope they continue it into the second volume, actually establish themselves as a little team again.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
That'd be really nice. I want a third volume. I want them to just keep doing volumes. I want the Trickster. When's the Trickster coming back? Big Finish, Nicholas Briggs. I know you listen to these, probably, probably not. Give me the Trickster, my boy. If you need an impressionist, James Sutton can do it. Just give me this trick, please. Please.
Anyway, thank you all for listening to the podcast. Myself is Connor Chadwick, and this is Eamon Longman. And once again, thank you to our Patreons.
It is. I'm here.
Yes, well, once again, thank you to our Patreons: Anya Coyle, Peter Scott, TT Productions 23, Chelsea Lagan, Delta Effects, and Joe Eddings.
Thank you.
And Eamon, I guess we will see each other again next month. And farewell.
We
to
will.
you.
It'll be a whole month before we see each other again.
Yes, that's how this works. We go off into the ether.
We never see each other.
No,
we never see each other unless
we
it's
never
with
talk
us.
outside of podcast recordings. So yes. Anyway.
No.
Thank you everyone for listening, and farewell.
Yes. Farewell. Goodbye.